welcome to episode 46 of Roll, Play, Grow, the podcast for tabletop entrepreneurs, creators, and fans. I am Courtney Stover of Lighthearted Ventures, and in this podcast, we talk to the creators behind the brands and the tabletop roleplay gaming space about who they are and how they are turning their passion for gaming into a career. Today, we get the pleasure of hearing from Jay, the owner and designer behind 88Riddles. You may have seen Jay for his painted dice boxes as part of an add-on to several Kickstarters, or maybe for his t-shirt and hoodie designs. Jay is a super talented artist who has a lot of great wisdom to share on running a plethora of online shops. If this is your first time tuning into Roll, Play, Grow, hello! This podcast is a part of Lighthearted Ventures, which is a small company I co-founded with my husband. We also do blogs, one-shots, and maps that you'll find over on our website, lightheartadventures.com. Today's affiliate is one for my fellow entrepreneurs out there who may be looking to upgrade your email marketing. Flowdesk lets you make gorgeous emails that are completely automated, and I cannot speak highly enough of them. You can see an example of this by going to our website, lightheartadventures.com. If you have pop-ups enabled, within a few seconds, you'll see a sign-up show up for a free D&D one-shot, or you'll find other ways to get that sign-up throughout the website if you have pop-ups blocked. That sign-up is powered by Flowdesk, and then it emails you a free one-shot and adds you to an automated email workflow that I set up a while back. It's super user-friendly to make new gorgeous emails, and it's really simple to schedule individual emails or create a workflow that messages your contacts week after week. If you use my affiliate link, you'll get 50% off your first year. Go to lightheartadventures.com/our-favorite-trinkets to learn more about Flowdesk and all of our other favorite things. That's all for now, so I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jay. Today, I am joined by the talented creator and dice goblin behind 88Riddles, Jay. Hello, Jay. How are you today?
I am fantabulous. How are you?
I am great. I'm really excited to get to know you and all of the stuff behind what you do. Yeah, to kick things off, can you tell us a bit about who you are and how you got into gaming?
Well, I am Jay. Real name is John, but everybody just calls me Jay, and there's a long story behind that. But anyway, I got into gaming, mid-'80s, and I was in 7th grade. But it was back in the mid-'80s. We were in middle school still, and one of my buddies came out with the red box and said, "Hey, you guys want to play during recess?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, we'll figure this out." And so, every day at recess and lunch, we would go into the library and just have our little fun and just kind of avoid the rest of school during those times. But it's carried on throughout my life. I've been an on-again, off-again tabletop player. Obviously did video games in between and everything else. So yeah, I'm kind of versed, you could say.
What are you playing these days?
Oh, geez. Let's see. My weekly campaign, we just recently wrapped up a 3.5-year campaign. And we're kind of doing little one-shots right now in between as we decide what we're doing for the next campaign. I've also got a Random Encounters Guild that I play Alien with, which is, right now, Alien is my number one RPG. I love that system and its mechanics. It's so elegantly simple and so fun to play. And then I've also got Duke's Minions that I'm with. It's a Patreon group from Norse Foundry. So the people that join doing the Minions through their Duke's Minions, we get together. Right now it's about once a month, and we play whatever kind of is on our mind. And right now that's Delta Green. So we have a Delta Green game going with that. And I also have a Shadowrun game, 5e Shadowrun, that I play in. So I'm kind of a little bit all over the place.
Honestly, I love it when you get to have a variety where it's not just D&D. It's like you get to play and experiment.
Ironically, the last 2 weeks were the first time I've played 5e in, I'd say, 3 years, maybe 4 years. Because almost everything else I play is Pathfinder or, the new Alien game, Delta Green, all these other stuff that we come along, Cyberpunk. So yeah, we just recently started playing 5e again.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I know this might be a contentious topic, but do you have a preference?
Between all games or just 5e versus Pathfinder?
I guess just the ones that you're playing. So Pathfinder, Alien.
Right now, like I said, definitely digging Alien. Alien is, I've kind of gone all in on that. I like the complexity of Pathfinder 1E more so than 2E. 2E is not as complicated. But I think it's because of having experienced, the AD&D come into life and then, going into second edition and how those rules were a little more crunchy. So that's what I started with. And it just, I kind of gravitate towards crunchier things until I ran, this Alien game is amazing. And back in the day, I still have a very fond appreciation for the face rip system that TSR used for their Marvel game back in the 80s. That system was just so simple, so fun, and it allowed you to do insane superhero things.
I would love to dive into all of the things that you do. So I know you've got a lot of design, a lot of merch and painting, the dice boxes. And so just how would you describe what it is that you do?
I boil it down to its simplicity of that I'm a designer and a painter that, kind of focuses in the TTRPG realm. But there's too many little nooks and crannies. So yeah, let's just keep it simple and we'll just say that. I do design work. Like this morning, I was working on a commissioned T-shirt design for one of the companies that I work with regularly.
Well, how did you get into this?
Oh, I've always had a thing for art. I think my first art class, if I remember correctly, was like I was 7 years old. It was something my mom sent me to during the summer just to kind of help me flex those muscles a little bit. I don't know. I've dabbled in so many different art forms. The one I was most resistant to was photography because both my moms were into photography. So it was kind of like, no, I'm going to make my own way. I don't need to follow your footsteps. Yeah, so it got serious for me. It was like around 2006, if I want to say right. I had worked for a small company, small at that time. They've actually gotten much bigger, out of Delaware, called Decal Girl. And I just kind of enjoyed their stuff. They were making, this was back in the days of the PS2, and they were making skins that go on, the controllers and all that fun stuff. And I thought it was just a great thing to design for. So I started doing design work for them, and then they brought me on for a short time. So that was when things really kind of got serious for me as far as that goes. And then when I left, I started my first Zazzle store, and Zazzle was really the only thing around at the time. So it was kind of like, deal with it. So that was my start there, I guess. And it's just kind of continued. So, I mean, now I've got, I barely pay attention to the Zazzle store, but I have Redbubble, Society 6, T Public, Displate. So that's where a lot of my artwork ended up. And then I was working for a company where I ran the art department and the production department for a while. And that was okay. That was fun. It was interesting. I learned a lot of things in that industry and that I could kind of carry over to what I'm doing now. And yeah, I find myself a solid production partner to help me with my Etsy shop. And so they take care of like actually producing the shirts and the mugs and all that stuff. And I take care of like, painting boxes.
Okay, you started with Zazzle and then you branched out eventually into these other sites.
Yep.
Talk me through the beginning stages. Like, what was it that inspired you to upload your designs on them? You've got so many designs out there now. So how long has it taken you to build up this kind of library?
The main heart of my current library that I have, and my library is much more than just TTRPG. In fact, my best selling design that I currently have out there is my fast pitch softball design. And that design actually goes all the way back to 2006. But there's so few good softball designs out there that, when you go on one of these sites and you're looking for softball and this thing just pops up and it's like, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for, and it's a crazy thing that something so simple becomes your best seller. I think for me, what really sparked me or encouraged me to continue dabbling in this until I decided to kind of go full bore like I am now was the little successes. And my biggest successes at that time were seeing St. Patrick's Day, mostly. And that was back to like 2007, 2008. My St. Patrick's stuff kind of took off and it was doing its own little thing on Zazzle. Between that and my experiences at later in life or more recently in life. My experiences at the company where I was, working with the art group and everything. There's something cool about doing a design and say it's something very direct, like a good Norse design, right? Um, and having that go, somebody in Norway ordering that design is kind of a cool thing that you kind of hit that little level of appreciation from somebody who is actually there. Like my Irish Celtic design that I have is quite popular actually in Ireland. But like they should be surrounded by this kind of stuff. How is my little design so cool that? But anyway, those little sparks of seeing your stuff like going out in different directions and places you've never even visited, and just knowing that your part of you is there. It's encouraging to be able to like say that and then go like, all right, well, if I can do that, what else can I do? So you kind of start stretching your wings and trying different things.
Yeah, that has to be like really special to see how far all of your creations are traveling.
Yeah, it is kind of cool.
So we've got all of these different designs that are essentially printed on different materials that people can buy through all of the different sites. But
Yep.
you've also got your dice boxes. So
Yep.
at what point did you add that to the mix?
So that's a more recent addition out of everything that I have on there. And it started at a gaming table when I had I just got my first set of really cool dice for the modern era, where I ordered a nice little hex shaped box for them to go in. And I look over at my DM and he has the same damn box. Son of a. So it's like, all right. I need to be an individual here. I'm that kind of guy. I'm a pain in the ass about it. So what can I do to make mine different without having to buy a new one? Well, hell, I've been painting miniatures since the 90s. So why don't we try painting it? And I did. And I really liked how it came out. I enjoyed it. And, so I showed it off. And I happened to be part of the Norse Foundry Discord at the time. I still am. I don't know why I said at the time, but I still am. And I showed it off in there. And then some other people asked for, can you paint mine? And so I started doing, just little paint jobs, and I'd take photos and set them up and, just kind of show them out there. And people were really enjoying what I was doing with it. So the guys at Norse Foundry, can you paint a couple for us? So I paint a few for them, and I send them over just so they can have them in the warehouse. It's like cool little things that, were one of a kinds that nobody else really had. And Drew, the owner of Norse, one of the owners of Norse, turned and he's like, I know the guy who runs Elderwood. I think I can hook you up. So yeah, things just kind of started. So it's been about 2 years ago. So this is still kind of a fresh thing that I'm kind of playing around with and experimenting, but I definitely think I found a little bit of my footing in doing these. And luckily I've got a pretty solid background to rely on helping me like navigate how best to do this, I guess.
That's really cool that it was just from sharing photos in a Discord and that it's grown into this.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, now part of Kickstarters, like the new Talon and Claw Kickstarter. This is my second one with them. I did a Kickstarter with Tabletop Makers where I was just, on all these, I'm basically just one of the artists. I've got another one coming up with Cryptic Creative is going to have my artwork in their next set of dice boxes. So it's kind of really evolved just from painting my own one box, and now I'm doing artwork for other people and design work, and like I just did the Blades in the Dark game. My producer on my stream, Eric Frankhouse, he had connections to these guys, to John, because he's running a game of Dark that John enjoys on the Norse Foundry channel. So we got the okay from John for me to do a few boxes using their logo, and I came up with the paint scheme. And yeah, I've already given the first one to John because he just loved it so much. So yeah, it's grown fast in really weird ways.
Yeah. So talk to me about these Kickstarter partnerships. Yeah, I guess like how they've come around, but then how do you help out with the fulfillment?
Fulfillment, I don't help out with. There was one I did with Tabletop Makers, included a bump in their thing where you could actually prepay for a custom paint job. So that's the only part where I come into the fulfillment. So I did those, but I also, for the main part of the Kickstarters, I provide artwork. So they pull me in fairly early on. The Talon and Claw one, there's three of us, me, Kate Greer, and Zero Jester. So the three of us were doing our own artwork on the fly there for putting out with their Kickstarter. And then, we just provide them with the artwork. And then after that, the fulfillment, the lasering, the engraving, all that stuff is kind of up to them. So, I mean, after that point, I really don't have a lot of control, any way to really help out, unless I fly out there and, actually jump in.
Okay, so they're engraving your designs. You're not painting them.
On the current Kickstarters, no.
Okay.
I haven't talked. David and I might still be kicking around the idea of doing some paints because David's the owner of Cryptic Creative. He's got 10 cases that I painted for him just like a month and a half ago that he's bringing to GaryCon with him. So he'll have those at the booth. So he really enjoyed seeing those live in a booth. Thought that it was a really great way to not only expand my brand, but his brand at the same time. So
that's cool. And that also makes a lot more sense because I was just sitting here thinking, like, if you had to paint all of those boxes on your own.
Oh, no. I mean, I'd love it Talon and Claw has started putting some of my designs on their regular offerings on their Etsy page.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing I would, if I could work it out somehow, some way, that's another thing I would just love to be able to do is like some of the manufacturers out there, if I could like get my artwork into their arsenal and actually had like, my artwork on their pages, that'd be a pretty awesome next step, I think. So yeah, definitely getting into, if I could find my way into the catalog of art provided with other vendors, that'd be pretty awesome. But it gets complicated because once you start talking about, licensing and so on and so forth, it's like, who has rights? How do we want to make this payout? Do we want to do a full, just buy the design outright? And if they do that, then I can't use it on my stuff. So it just gets, there are some things that have to be hammered out, like anytime you enter into a partnership like that on, like usage rights and so on and so forth, and how much each person gets paid. So it's complicated and it does muddle things up a little bit. So it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, or I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any partnerships lined up? Like, I mean, I know that you're working kind of a lot with Talon and Claw. I think you mentioned that they have some of your designs on their site already.
Yep, they have some on their site, and then they've got I think they chose 10 different designs for their Kickstarter, so there's that on there as well, and yeah.
So how did you navigate the licensing questions?
I like to handle licensing as a one-off kind of thing, not necessarily doing a blanket for everybody, because everybody that I work with, especially when you get into something where it's an item like this, where there's a lot of dynamic things that can happen very quickly when they do expansions on their end. So I like to handle each company that I work with as a one-on-one, one-time basis thing. So my deal with Talon and Claw is going to be different than what I do with Elderwood, and that's going to be different than what I do with Cryptic Creative. They're all going to have their own separate, depending on what their needs are and what the evolution of their line is going to be. And then, keeping in mind what on my side, what I'm hoping my evolution will be. It's not anything that you can just do like a straight cut and dry form. You really do want to approach each one as its own individual thing and treat it that way. Just communication is a huge thing in that process. So just talk it out with whoever you're dealing with and get to a point where both of you guys are satisfied.
I think that's great advice. So yeah, I'm curious about, I guess how you're getting your inventory for your own Etsy store. Like, do you have a partnership set up where you're able to get some of these dice boxes wholesale, or are you just paying like normal price and then painting them?
For Elderwood and Talon and Claw, I have worked out deals on my end. Obviously, there's a lot of things in that I can't talk about because,
sure.
But no, I have worked out deals with both of them so that I can get things that when I can get a box at a wholesale rate or even like a discounted rate or an artist rate. Like Jess at Works of Whimsy, she's in the same position I am when it comes to the margins that we put into our product, because we don't want to put too high of a margin into our product. And when we do, if you put too high of that margin in there, it makes it harder for people to afford it. So, but even with Jess, I mean, she at least gives me a small discount, even though it's harder for her to afford because she's not a big company. When I buy her the big dice, the big D20s that she has that I paint for people. So yeah, I try to, as best as I can, at least work out even the smallest discount so that I can keep my prices manageable for other, for people to be able to enjoy my product. Otherwise, I'm pumping out big numbers, but nobody's able to afford them, So there's other companies that I've tried to make connections with who were dead flat that they just could not offer me any kind of discount. And I tried painting some of their stuff and putting it out there where I still had a markup in it that adequately paid me back for my investment of the bucks and the time and everything. And it was just like the price difference was a little harsh, I think, for a lot of people to grasp onto. So I never went back to those, those companies have just not been a regular part of my offerings because I can't justify cutting my self-value, I guess is a good way to put it. When you're doing this kind of stuff, self-value is something that you have to learn. Well, I think most of us have to learn because we're taught not to value ourselves. But yeah, it's if I can't get a discount, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to run with it. So that's why you may have a favorite company that I don't paint for, and the reason that most of that is, or the reason I don't paint them is because I can't get them at an affordable rate to where my painting on top of it doesn't blow your bank budget.
Yeah, that's always a tricky thing to balance, making sure that you are getting paid your worth while also getting prices that people are able to, and I guess willing to pay.
It's kind of a double-edged blade because the fact that if you don't truly put your correct value to what you do into your pricing, it works against you because first of all, you're going to get, it's great that you're going to get a lot of orders and that you may get more orders because you have this lower price point. But having that lower price point means that when your orders get out of control and you need help, you can't really justify hiring someone to help you unless you're going to pay them a low wage as well. Because that margin is your wage. And it covers everything, not only for like the painting that I do, but it has to cover things like the boxes, the tape, any other packaging that I have to use, like bubble wraps, things like that. It has to cover shipping costs. It has to cover the fact that I need to stop what I'm doing to run to the store to buy supplies, or I need to stop what I'm doing once a day and go to the post office to drop off orders. So, like, even if I wanted to pay someone to do shipping for me, if I haven't added that value into my margins, then I can't afford to pay that person, So if you're not thinking about these things, and that's not including things like all your Etsy fees and everything else. So it's marketing fees. So yeah, there's more to figuring out your margin and asking for a right price than just the amount of time or the amount of materials it takes you to make the product.
Have you figured out a way, or do you have any tips on like what works for you to make sure that you are walking that line?
Well, I do have trackers that I use that give me an idea using your bank statements or your receipts, things like that, to find out how often are you buying this supply and making, kind of there's no way you can really get down to like, I'm spending this much on the penny for every box that I put together. There's just no way. It's going to vary too much. You want just a good idea and use your receipts to see how often you're buying this item, and then break that up amongst the number of orders that you had during that time. And that's one little solution to at least get a quick, easy breakdown of that. And you just have to track your time, because time is the one thing you can't really get back or buy from anywhere else. You only have like what's in front of you. So tracking the amount of time it takes you to do things like shipping, tracking the amount of times it takes you to make your runs to the post office and, all these other things. Because if you do need to hire somebody else, it's going to be based on time. So you need to have an idea of how much you would need to have cushion in there to be able to afford to have help when you need it.
You mentioned that you have a production partner helping with some of the t-shirts and things. How did you go about finding that help?
Well, I spent 5 years in the industry doing the the production side and the art side. So, and I've done everything from DTG to laser to screen print to sublimation, large format printing, decals, all kinds, so I've done all this stuff. So I understood what the quality control needs to be. I understood what kind of equipment I was looking for a production partner to have access to so that I knew I was getting good quality. So I was looking for somebody that had that kind of flexibility. Turns out the company I found is a partner with Etsy. The company's name is Printful, and they are a network of shops like what I worked at. So the shop I worked at could have easily fit into this network of shops that they have, where they actually have shops, production company shops in Canada, the UK. I think they just got their first one in Australia online. So having a global reach as well as just the ability to do so many things was what I was looking for, and it was just having the background in the industry made it easier for me to pinpoint who I would want to work with based on what their tech was. And there was emails that I sent and questions that I did and waited for their feedback before I said, yeah, okay, I'm gonna jump in and use you guys as my partner.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard of Printful and used them on more of like a personal level. Just like, oh, I need 20 t-shirts for this one thing.
They do stuff like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool though that they've got that integration with Etsy.
Printful has an API for a lot of different companies, like Shopify, Magento. If you're doing your own web-based stuff, they have direct APIs for eBay and Amazon and Etsy. So anywhere you wanted to try to get your stuff up, you could use Printful to do that.
Hey entrepreneurs, I love introducing you to new creators every episode, but I could really use your support. I would love to invite you to join our Patreon page, where you'll gain access to behind-the-scenes content, add your questions to upcoming interviews, and you could even receive a shout out on our site in an upcoming episode. To learn more, go to lightheartadventures.com/RPG. And now back to the show. So you mentioned Etsy's fees earlier, and I know that those fees just went up.
1.5%. There's a lot of back and forth I can understand on Etsy. Etsy works for what Etsy is designed to work for, and you have to understand that. There's nothing neither good nor bad about what they're doing. They're just doing business. So, I mean, it is destructive to some degree in the market they started from, but they are evolving into something different. They're really expanding past. And the great thing about the fact that with them expanding past what they've done is they've brought in a bigger customer base than what they started with. So there's a back and forth on that. If you stopped paying all that and you did your own Shopify or did your own Magento, like some of the things that are not clicked in there is like you still pay a percentage to whoever's processing your cards. There's no real way around that I've seen at this point. If anybody knows anything out there, please let me know, because I'm interested in opening another Shopify store. So, but yeah, there's no real easy way around processing fees. There's no real easy way again. You have to buy an URL, pay for that on its regular basis. Your cost of trying to get your stuff at a level of look on like Google, using Google ads and things like that, your marketing is going to really kind of get you where you probably don't realize as far as cost wise goes. I mean, even Twitter is $50 for an ad campaign. So, and that's just one ad campaign, and it's got a limited number of reaches that it can hit. So it's like you're paying for advertising, or you're using Etsy that already has a built-in clientele. But like, if you're somebody like Tim at Staff and Branch, he sells out constantly. He rarely has any stock or inventory. And if you're running a store like that, and he definitely found this to be true, is that running a store like that where you're not holding stock and inventory that people can just constantly buy, that's where Etsy fails you. That's where Etsy is no longer going to work for you cost effectively. And where going to something like a Shopify or a Magento is going to allow you to really have more of your percentage back to you.
That's a really interesting point. I know that there's always that balance too of, are you able to bring in your own customers on your own, or do you need that access to the larger market that something like Etsy can offer?
Yeah, and it's real easy to look up. I mean, it's easy-ish to look up in your seller's controls. because it'll let you know where your traffic is coming from. The thing it won't let you know, and this is part of the information they do hold from you intentionally, you don't know where the orders come from per se. So like I know where all my traffic is coming from and who's providing that traffic. And yes, the vast majority of that traffic comes from my own social media and my direct links. But I do get a percentage, a decent percentage that are just coming in finding me through Etsy. I lose that if I leave Etsy. So I have to assume, loosely assume, and this is still just an assumption. The numbers can be way wrong. But if I leave Etsy and open a Shopify, I'm losing that percentage. That percentage is going to drop off my sales. So if it's 23%, then I need to assume that I'm going to lose 23% of my income, because people are a lot of people find a platform they like and they stick to it. That's why some people are loyalists to Amazon. Some people are loyalists to Etsy. Some people are loyalists to eBay. So if you're not on those platforms, they're most likely not going to find you or buy from you. So it goes both ways. You have to look at the whole thing and make a full judgment, and not just look at how it directly impacts what you're doing. And if these little bumps that they're doing have been minor, but I see where it has been growing over the past 3 years. These fees have increased, and I would be lying if I said COVID didn't have an impact on that. There's definitely impacts on every business out there from COVID. Everybody's raising some level of prices. So, I mean, there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was getting, I think, a Starbucks coffee for the first time in like 6 months yesterday, and it was a lot more than I remember ever paying.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and it's just all the stuff. I mean, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that a company goes through that we may not be privy to. You know, I will say the one thing that gets I do have a complaint as far as Etsy goes is at my level is that you can't opt out of the marketing that they do.
Mm.
And I've been really lucky. Well, you can call it lucky or unlucky. I've had very, very, very few orders come through on their marketing where I get hit with, that larger percentage that they want for, putting you on Google. I think I've had maybe 3 of those. That's it. 3. So yeah, it's a big impact on your bottom line, but I'm getting very few coming through. My problem with it is that this big margin or this big cut that they want to take out of that, not all of my products have that big of a cut. So I end up taking a negative hit on some of my products if it sells through this marketing. So I'm stuck with 2 options. I'm stuck with the option of either do I take the hit on these very rare and random ones, just like every once in a while I get hit with one from Australia where I either break even or I lose a couple dollars because shipping. But if we could have a way for us to opt out of low margin, like if I had a way to mark an item as a low margin item and they would not put that out there for their big stuff and just focused on my stuff that has margins that can accommodate it, that'd be great. Because my only other option is raise prices to accommodate for those. And I really don't want to, because the shirts that I have on my site, don't get me wrong. The companies use an Avalanche 1000 or higher, an AVK, or they're using the Storm 2s, whatever. But they're all Cornettes for the most part, and these Cornettes do an amazing, amazing print job. I've worked with them personally. They can be a little temperamental, but they're awesome machines. But as awesome as they are, and the fact that they create such a lightweight print is a beautiful thing, but it's not screen. Screen is still a different beast, and I work with, I just started talking to Print Inkling again about doing another shirt. So we've already got the design nailed down, and we're working out these other things. But I want to be able to sell that shirt for a better price or a higher price because of the fact that it is a better quality and it's coming from a handmade group. And so I don't want my regular shirts that are print on demand to seem on par with a screen print job, because they're really not. They are completely different things. And when you get a screen print piece, I enjoy those so much where I have 6 or 7 Print Inkling shirts already, and there's more that I really want to get from them. But anyway, so yeah, I digress a little bit. So yeah, so I want my collaborations with Print Inkling and other screen printers to be able to be that premium piece without having to be even more expensive, because I don't want it to be as, the same cost as my print on demand shirts.
I think that is completely logical. Like that makes like their quality is so good.
Yeah, they definitely know what they're doing. I've talked with them. I talk with them on a very regular basis because I just love their stuff, and I want to do more work with them. It's just a matter of being able to find the time and also being able to afford it. Because unlike print on demand, you pay for it as it's made. With something like a screen print, you're going to pay all that up front. So being able to afford it is not always the thing. So that's why the doing the pre-orders like we did with the Goblin Shiny Math Rocks, Nice Goblins Shiny Math Rock shirts that we did last year, and do it as a pre-order, give everybody a chance to kind of get their shirt ready and stuff. And that was great. That was one of the more fun collaborations I've done, I think, out of everything. And I Print Inkling is one of those companies I would in a heartbeat have no problem giving them like, look, here's my library, have fun. Because I know they're going to, just like Talon and Claw does, just like Elder, they're going to respect my artwork, and they're going to be honest with me. I trust the company, I trust the people that are there and I know that they're going to give a great quality product that I'm not going to always have access to. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm just imagining now like all of your designs on like with their quality. That'd be amazing.
I have over 1,000 designs, so just let me know when you're ready. And they're not all D&D related.
You hear it, Rusty? Have fun. So that actually, you mentioned something that I find to be, I don't know, an interesting question too, and is the balance of, I guess, the pre-order of yourself. So, whether that's t-shirts or how many boxes that you're going to order, like how do you decide how much stock you're going to, or how much inventory you're going to stock up on before it actually sells, so that you're able to like balance your finances to where like, it's a good investment, but there's still like that element of risk that's going on.
With my boxes, it's pretty easy. Anything that I'm hand painting, when I paint it, I'm going to, during that process, I'm going to make that judgment call in my head. And it doesn't matter if it's one of my designs or one of the stock designs, because I've painted a lot of stock designs from Elderwood. I've painted a lot of Kate Greer, who works with Talon and Claw as well. There's a few of her designs that she does for them that I've bought and painted. So kind of all three of us kind of get our good share out of that. And that's one thing I will note, is that whenever I do buy something that has somebody else's, I make sure that there's a communication between all three of us, that the artist is still getting their cut, even though I'm getting a discount. So I try to make sure that that stays in there. So, but whatever I'm painting during the process, I create what's called a recipe. So I have these little index cards where I write down my process. So like what inks I'm using, what paints I'm using. Is it a dry brush, a heavy dry brush, a wet brush? Like what kind of, how did I do the application? Was it sponge application? So on and so forth. And so I just keep track of that. And that's my recipe for repeating what I'm doing, so that I have the ability to repeat it. If I feel like that recipe is a little too complex, or maybe I've gotten a little too artistic with it, where it's a flow and not a process, those are going to become my one of a kinds. And you'll see them in my one of a kind section, where I'm not going to attempt to replicate what I just did, because I don't think I can. And then I have my other ones where the recipe is straightforward, it's simple, it gives me the ability to replicate it as best I can. And none of my replications are exact duplicates. So, I mean, that's just the nature of art and wood. But at that point, I decide, okay, so let's see how fast the template sells. So I'll always put up the one I actually painted. That's the one I do the photos of, and I put it up there. And depending on the reaction I get on Twitter or Instagram or the Discord servers that I'm on, that weighs in on whether or not, okay, am I going to make this a regular offering, or is this just going to end up being a one of a kind? And between that and how fast the first one sells, kind of helps me make that judgment. After that, that's where it goes into a pre-order process, which is why a lot of my stuff in the regular dice box section says that it takes 3 to 4 weeks. And the reason is because I don't actually have the boxes in stock. I haven't painted them in advance. So, I mean, you really have the option of, like, if you wanted a different wood, talk to me. If you want a different, like one color to change, just send me a message, talk to me. We can customize as we go along. And I usually don't, if it's like a color change, I'm not going to charge you extra for that. That's just crazy, because it's going to be the same amount of time it would take me to do the original color. Big deal. Same thing with the woods. As long as the woods aren't more expensive and it's not costing me more on to get that, let's switch out woods. Let's do a different wood. But that gives me that ability to do that because I haven't made it ahead of time. But you do have that 3 to 4 week period that, I have to place my order with the company that I'm getting them from. They have to be able to have time to produce them, ship them to me, give me time to paint them, cure them, seal them, and then ship them out. So that's why there's that 3 to 4 week on the regular ones where I don't have in stock available. Almost all the time, though, like when I do order stuff, say I get an order for, 2 orders for the Blades in the Dark. I'll order a third one because I need to have that extra coverage just in case something happens to one of the two that I'm painting during the process. But it also gives me, that ability to, like, when I've got the orders filled, now I have this third one that nobody's claimed yet that I can either do a new style to and test that out, or I can go ahead and paint it the regular way and have it out there as available as an instant offering, because some people do want that quick turnaround offering. So you'll see listings bounce back and forth in my thing between being a pre-order offering and an in-stock offering, just based on whether or not I've painted a new one recently.
That is such a cool way to do it. And I don't, do you ever feel like the 3 to 4 weeks isn't enough lead time, or has it been like a good balance that you're not feeling stressed about getting it done on time?
I'm not stressed, and it's typically not a stressor on my partners. So like Town and Claw and Elderwood, I don't typically have to, like, it gives them plenty of time for what their turnaround time is. So I'm not stressing myself, and I'm doing my best not to stress the vendors that I buy from. Every once in a while, we'll run into an issue where a particular wood may be low in stock. Like I had that issue, not an issue, but I just had that conversation with Greg over at Elderwood, because they're low on one particular wood for regular, but they have that wood in the remastered. So I was covered because I wanted it remastered, but if I wanted it in the regular, I would have to wait a little extra time. And that's where, things can be a little hairy and get down to the wire. But I mean, Etsy's got this whole thing where they're tracking your late shipments now with the whole Star Seller program. And I haven't missed my mark on that. I'm over 95% all the time on time delivery. So, and that's including all the stuff from my production partner. So I think I'm doing okay.
No, I was wondering about if Etsy has the ability to have it indicated as a pre-order, because I know I've heard a lot about the Star Seller thing wants you to be very fast on getting it out.
Well, they wanted you to be on time. It's not fast, it's just on time. So it's based on how much time you give yourself. So it's really, they have with the Star Seller program, I'll tell you my biggest pet peeve with that right now. Etsy is not communicating within its own company on the Star Seller program. And it becomes apparent because part of their criteria is and this is where speed comes in, is the speed of reply that you give to any incoming messages. So I got dinged once, and it won't happen again, but I had a long argument with Etsy over it. You have 24 hours. You have a whole 24 hours to respond to messages you get through Etsy. And if you're not checking, if you have an Etsy account and you have an Etsy store, and this is something you really want to do, and you're not checking your Etsy messages multiple times a day, it's not on Etsy. It's really not. That's on the creator, the shop owner, to manage that. And yeah, it sucks that they've put that in there, but I also understand it. But I don't understand. What I don't understand is that, like I said, they're not communicated throughout the company. So other departments are sending me messages through the Etsy portal that tell me, don't respond to this message. But if I don't respond to this message, I'll get dinged on my Star Seller program. And I've replied multiple times to these other departments going like, you do realize that telling me not to respond is going to impact my Star Seller. So I have to respond. You can't put this in your message and hope that people understand that they don't have to respond, because they have to respond. Because if they don't, they get dinged. This is your own company. You should know what's going on within your company and how you're impacting your sellers before so it's like, yeah, that's one of the things that my biggest beef. And it's just it's such a small thing, but it's still freaking annoying as hell to know that they don't have that together. Like there's no internal communication going on.
That does sound super frustrating. I do want to switch gears a little bit because
Go
I
for it.
realized that we haven't talked yet about watching paint dry.
Dun,
So,
dun, dun.
for our listeners that have no idea what the words I just said mean, can you please tell me about what this stream is and how it came to be?
It's something that's been in conversation for probably close to about like an 8-month period, I'd say. And it was a matter of just finding the right time to slip it in, because this is the watching paint dry is a stream that I do every Thursday, noon central, on the Norse Foundry Twitch channel. So Norse Foundry has sponsored me doing this stream of my painting process and so forth. And it's like I said, it's been in conversation for a while, and it was just a matter of finding the right time to insert it into their schedule, because they do have multiple games that they run on there and stuff. So, but this would be something new to help them expand their customer base, hopefully, and give back a little something different that wasn't really out there. But it's a 2 hour stream where I paint and I chat. It's really what it is. And Eric is with me, Eric Frankhouse. He's the producer. He's there in the stream with me, and he and I interact with each other. And we use a app for Twitch called Streamloots, which allows us to create cards that people can buy. They buy a pack, and a pack is usually 3 or 2 cards, and they can buy the pack, and they can play those cards. And when they play those cards, that's the audience's way of interacting with the show. So right now, my biggest thing is that at least once a month, we do an auction, and we also do a giveaway. The giveaway is based on how many times you get the golden ticket, which is in the cards, or if you get the card that allows you to roll the D20 for an entry, which you have to roll an 8 because 8s are cool. And then the other one is how many times you make me laugh. A lot of these cards are designed, they're kind of in that vein of Cards Against Humanity, where you get to kind of put in your own answers. So we give you the black cards, and you've got to create your own insert. So it's a little bit of a mix of Cards Against Humanity and Mad Libs. So using those cards to make me laugh, or to get Eric to make me laugh, or to make me laugh on my own through my own response, gets you an entry to win one of the chests that I paint that month. And I the reason why I guess to explain the behind the thought process, watching paint dry, I wanted that name because it's, first of all, it's just a fun name. It's kind of like one of those things that's like, why the hell would you name your thing that way? Nobody wants to watch paint dry. But when it comes to like processes like this, for me, it's the interaction in between the painting. It's those moments that watching when the paint is drying and you can't do anything, where you can actually have a little more interaction. And because you're in this mental process, it's a little more creative, a little more free flowing, a little more fun. So I wanted that to be the focus, not the actual painting, but the interaction in between, the community, I guess. And the laughing part, I mean, we all know, or hopefully we all understand that laughter is a beautiful thing in our lives. And it can be so helpful for our mental health to laugh. But not only to laugh, when you get into the mindset of trying to make someone else laugh, that also gives you the same release of endorphins that laughter itself does, because it puts you in that mindset, and you start thinking funny things, and you start trying to come up with craziness, and it just frees up your mind. So I like that your way of entering the giveaway is also helpful for your own mental health, and so I like being able to put that little bright spot in someone's day, I guess, a little differently than most people would have access to. And even just listening, you're gonna run into some stuff that's like, oh, geez, it's definitely adult rated. It's not. There's some. It gets a little risque in there at moments, but yeah, no, it's I like the show. It's really fun. It's another way for me to support what I do, and also support Norse Foundry for everything they've done for me.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I was watching a little bit earlier this week before this interview just to get an idea of it. And I do love the whole concept of like, yeah, you get an entry by making you laugh. Like, that's super fun.
I enjoy it. So, I mean, it gives me laughs.
Yeah.
We do take the first Thursday of every month. We take that off just to give ourselves a break. So this Thursday, tomorrow, I'll be back on stream, and we're going to continue on with the Cthulhu case from Talon and Claw that Kate Greer designed. has been a requested item that people have been asking me to paint, put my own treatment to. So we're doing that on stream. I've already gotten the first parts of it done. So we'll be going into our next parts in the next episode. Along with, I will be doing a Blades in the Dark remastered from Elderwood. Will be the other case that I do during the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I think.
Awesome. That sounds super fun. I want to make sure that we have time to go over some questions that I like to ask in every interview.
Go for it.
I think you know what's coming. So you do a lot. You have so many designs out there on so many different things. You are painting some really cool, really pretty dice boxes. But obviously, being an artist and a designer trying to do this on your own is a lot of work. And I'm sure there are a lot of challenges. So tell me about it. What's been the most challenging part?
Oh, all right. So I've already gone over or expressed how vast my library of work is and how it's not, my whole library as a whole is not D20 centric or TTRPG centric. There's a lot of things that I have in my library that are way beyond that in different categories. And combining that with my knowledge of multiple production processes from sublimation to DTG, just those two alone, there's a huge difference in the way you set up your art files and what you can actually do. And then you take that, now you add in my production partner, Printful, and their catalog of product is ginormous. I mean, mugs, dresses, sports bras, t-shirts, leggings, duffel bags, beach towels. The list goes on. There's so many things that they have access to that you can put your designs and artwork on. And when I first decided I was going to step away from, well, I didn't really decide to step away. There's a reason why I am no longer with the art company I was with. And it's a popular topic. People already know about it. But my initial launch on Etsy and then my Shopify that I did on top of that for 88Riddles was too much. I had designs in so many different directions on so many different products that it made my store, what ended up happening is both my stores, my Shopify and my Etsy, were a confusing cluster of stuff that, even though the categories were set up and easy to navigate, it wasn't cohesive. It didn't fit together. There was just too much jumbling going on. So I had to like really pull back and reset my mental process on like, all right, so how am I going to make this work, make it profitable? Because right now what I'm doing isn't working. It wasn't getting me any kind of like attention. It wasn't getting me a lot of other things. I wasn't going anywhere. I had a lot of really cool stuff, but I didn't have a lot of focus. And that was the biggest thing. I think it was the biggest challenge getting to where I am now, was finding that focus, finding that niche, and discovering where you kind of fit in this community. So I dialed back everything. I took down so many products and stopped carrying them and focused on core items. And that was going to be shirts, hoodies, my dice boxes. That was going to be my core pieces. And I was going to revert to almost exclusively D20 and TTRPG centric designs. So that was my hardest part. That was definitely the biggest thing to overcome and really work through, was just figuring out where you fit, what should be your focus. When you find that purpose, how much competition do you have in that niche, however you want to say it, so that you want to find that spot, that sweet spot where there's very little competition, but decent enough demand.
No, I think you raised some really good points that it can be really hard to dial in and figure out what that niche is going to be. And sometimes I know too that you think you know what it's going to be and you try it out and maybe it doesn't work. So I know that takes a long time. That is hard. That is challenging for sure.
Yes, it is.
Cool. Well, let's flip it around. What's been the best part? What's been the most rewarding?
The most rewarding during all this process is a lot of the connections I've made, because especially in the D&D Twitter community or the TTRPG Twitter community, whichever one you want to look at, because they're both so interconnected, obviously. But that community, I can't express I know that there are gatekeepers out there. I know that there are this small group of rabble who refuse to accept the change and be inclusive and be, and accepting of diversity. I know they're there. They're never going to go away. It's just something we have to deal with. But 99% of the people I talk to in those communities are absolutely amazing people. Not just for the games they play, not just for the stuff they create or the stuff that they enjoy to buy, who they're a patron of, but just in general. I mean, these people genuinely create a collective where they care about each other on a personal level. And I see it with responses to my own stuff sometimes whenever I'm having a bad day. And that's, yeah. And that, I guess that's my biggest thing. And it's been a huge getting on my own and getting into this community has definitely helped my own mental health in the same process.
I 100% agree. This community is amazing. Well, I know that we need to start winding down, but first I want to ask, are there any upcoming projects that we haven't really talked about that you're allowed to talk about that you're looking forward to?
I wish I could talk about the design I'm doing right now, but I can't. I can't wait to see it go live though, so I'm kind of excited about that. But no, definitely the Talon and Claws Kickstarter is going on right now. It is an Adventurer's Compendium collection thing. So it's got a dice box that actually has room for your mini as well. And I think it's set up for 9 or 11. I got to double check that. No, it's not a C of 11. It might be a C of 11. But they have that going on right now. The lid for it can be engraved. It also comes with a rolling tray that the dice box fits into. And there's a notebook, and they also have dice that you can go with it. They have custom miniatures in there as well. So it's a pretty all-inclusive. Like if you're looking for one total package kind of bundle for a character, or even just for your own vibe, but it's kind of character driven in my opinion, from what I see. That's one great one to go at. And then David over at Cryptic Creative, he's going to be doing his next Kickstarter coming up shortly. It's a relaunch of the original crypts that they did. So the crypts that if you've been on my channels and you've seen my paint jobs on these crypts, the new crypts he's got coming out, they've taken a lot of design notes. One of the things that people will really enjoy is that the lid is more interlocking. So it has a more stable as far as that. And it's definitely bigger in shape, giving more of a true coffin feel instead of the old narrow wooden box kind of feel. So I'm excited for this one. I really like the designs that I gave him, and I can't wait to see what they look like on his new box.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll include some links to those in the show notes. Jade, this has been awesome. If people want to find you, find your shop and all of your shops, where should they go?
Well, I gave you the link, I think, to post at the end of this, so people will be able to access me through that. But if you're looking on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I am 88Riddles. I am also 88Riddles on Etsy. The best way to get to my shops on Redbubble, Society 6, all those is going to be through my link tree because I provide direct links to those in there. So a lot easier to get to. You can find me on the Norse Foundry Twitch channel every Thursday. The link will be in the link tree for that as well. So it's easy to find. The name of the show is Watching Paint Dry. And I think that covers it. Unless you live in Tucson. If you live in Tucson, I can point out some other places you might find me.
Perfect. Yeah, that link tree will be in the notes. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been so interesting, and I've just loved getting to know more about what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this.
You just finished another episode of Roll, Play, Grow. To check out the show notes from today's episode, you can go to lightheartadventures.com/RPG. To keep up with every episode, please subscribe on your podcast player of choice. And if you're enjoying the show, I would absolutely love if you would leave me a review and share this episode with your friends. Your review might even get featured on an upcoming episode. To follow me on Twitter, you can either find me at lightheartadv for our business account, or at KetraRPG for tweets on gaming, my dog Bowser, and other random shenanigans. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Roll, Play, Grow.